Well, hello. Thank you for clicking. My name is Stephanie, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. On my channel, we like to talk about all things staying off the sauce, that is, alcohol, because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and a few other modalities. That's why I'm still alive today. This is extra life for me. I should not be here. I should be dead. I was drinking every single day for a couple of years, many years, in fact. And that's one of the reasons why I say there's no such thing as responsible drinking. Because when you first start out drinking, no one tries to be an alcoholic. You know what I'm saying? We all start out with just a casual drink. That's how we all start out. Never a plan to become addicted to the alcohol. And we don't find out we are addicted to the alcohol until we are well within the disease. Stage 4, if you will. Wait for the chopper. We are in Southern California, in Pasadena, California, which is very urban, close to Eagle Rock in downtown LA. So you'll hear some noises, but we'll deal with it. Anywho, I'd like to get into step 4 right away. You might like Alcoholics Anonymous. You might not know anything about it. You might hate it, take it or leave it. Either way, let's just kill some time here and save our own lives, because this is better than drinking. Remember that. Anything you can do to stay off the sauce. And that's what we're learning here. I'm going to take little bits from the big book and the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm going to feed it to you on a silver platter, if you will, nicely, easily, at your own pace. Drop in the comments if you have any questions about the program. But I just take what works and I leave the rest behind, and that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to jump into your step 4, because daily this is what you're going to want to do. This is the homegirl homework to stay off the sauce. You know what I'm saying? You can use other modalities of healing, especially talk therapy, especially antidepressants if that's necessary. Personally, I went on antidepressants as soon as I was done drinking. As soon as I weaned off of alcohol with a doctor and medication, because I was a daily drinker, almost killed myself. Then I quickly went on to an antidepressant that I knew had worked for me in the past, which was bupropion, well known as Wellbutrin. And it has worked, and I don't plan on going off of it. I'm fine with harm reduction. If I have to be on a medication for the rest of my life to help me not self-medicate through alcohol, I'll do it. Will I try to go off of it one day? Probably. Right now, that's not a priority. With that said, I do have talk therapy once a week. Sometimes I do by every 2 weeks, depending on my level of stress and needing to talk, or EMDR. Look up EMDR if you don't know what it is. It is very good for trauma healing, and I use that for my sexual assault trauma. And daily, I am also going on walks. I'm exercising. I'm taking a time out. I'm saying no. I'm not overbooking myself. I'm not working in an environment that gives me headaches and bowel problems. I have to let you know that I had more bowel problems after I stopped drinking than when I was drinking. And it was bad when I was drinking. And that is because I'm a person who carries a lot of my emotion in my stomach. And Chinese medicine will tell you that our emotions are held in our gut. And I do believe that to be true, because in my personal life, when I've felt the most turmoil, I have had the most intestinal distress. So I have been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, TMI, right? Well, the thing is, it fluctuates with stressors, food intake, and overall peace. So really, if I'm feeling at peace, if I'm feeling happy, if I'm feeling a manageable amount of stress in my life, then my stomach is fine. If not, it's not fine. And so I want you to pay attention to your body, because it's really important. As we're aging, as we're moving through life, our body is telling us all kinds of things. And guess what? I used to turn that off when I was drinking. I would numb out my mind and my body. And who knows what I was missing along the way, those red flags that would pop up. So today I'm going to go over my step 4 with you, because this is the homework I do to keep my mind right in order to stay away from drinking. Because I would drink when I'm feeling guilt, shame, anger. If I was feeling out of control, if I felt like I didn't have a voice, I would drink over all of those emotions. So now, instead of drinking, I actually find a solution. So step 4 today, for my resentment or my grudge, let's see. I'll go over my step 4 for you so you can see what I do on a daily if I'm feeling upset. So if I'm not feeling upset, I don't really need to do a step 4 on a daily. But if I'm feeling some sort of conflict or discontentment in my life, some fork in the road, some confusing situation, some obstacle, I will do a step 4. I'll write this down, I'll jot it down. I do a date. Step 4 is very sloppy, but it helps me along my way. Sometimes I go back and read them. Step 1, what is my resentment today? Today I felt very upset again. Oftentimes, I'll give you an easy one, is the president, right? Mr. You know who, the orange one. My resentment towards him, the cause of it was because he cut funding for people who are low income who need benefits from SNAP benefits. And he's constantly violating human rights. And that's one of the things. By starving people, he's violating human rights. This caused me upset, anger, discontentment, feelings of rage today and many days, and today too. The way this affects me on my step 4 is it makes me short tempered with my family, with my friends, with everyone. I get short with them. And I don't like that. It makes me on edge when I carry this around. And it does not allow me patience. I am not graceful when I carry around this resentment, this anger for this person on the daily. So my role is to allow this to ruminate. My role in this is to allow myself to continue to think. What does ruminate mean? Let's define ruminate. Oftentimes, our role is the rumination, the thinking over and over and over. And to ruminate, it means to think deeply about something or to turn over in your mind, to turn something over in your mind. A synonym for that, synonym for ruminate would be, I think, would be obsess or fixate. Sometimes my role is watching more social media. If I'm scrolling the news or TikTok, even if I'm not looking for politics, it will come up. And so it is oftentimes my mental health to put the phone down or just put music on. Very often, that's the situation. And so for my step 4, I know my role is to ruminate, and I know my role is to scroll, doom scroll, right? So step 5, number 5 on step 4 is your solution. What's my role in the solution? How can I be of solution service to the situation? So my solution to feeling my resentment was today was a voting day. Now I already dropped my ballot a long time ago. So I already did that job. Check. I voted. That gave me a sense of empowerment. I made my resentment go away a little bit. And what else did I do? Let's see, because I wrote it down. I donated. I donated a little bit of money to a food bank. Wasn't much, $50. It's what I could afford. But I sent that money over to a food bank locally because the food I set out on Halloween, the ramen, the candy, nobody touched it. I happen to live in a nice neighborhood where people are not hungry. And I'm very grateful and lucky for that. So I donated. And that made me feel empowered. That made me feel like I had a voice and I had some control over a little bit of the situation. And then volunteering. How can you volunteer? Well, oftentimes it's difficult. They don't make it easy to volunteer. Sometimes I'm just picking up trash at the park while my son is playing. I got one of those little grabber things. It's great. It's not for political purposes, but any good I can help my community allows the bigger good to be seen and heard. And, with my solution, I'm allowed to speak out. I'm allowed to speak out on politics. Thankfully, that is a right I still have to some degree. I get to say what the brown folks don't get to say. I get to say what the MAGA white women, what I want to say to them, because as a white woman, people have assumed I am a racist bigot many times in my life. They will speak to me as if I am in their club of racism because they see me, and maybe it's a dental setting, which is where I often work, and they'll see me and clock me and just start spewing out beliefs and ideas. And not knowing my beliefs and ideas, just seeing me, they assume that I believe in racism and bigotry like they do. And because I'm in a professional setting, I always just downplay it. I don't address it. I go about my business. I find a way to move out of that subject. But I hear what they say. I hear what they say and what they think and what they believe. So part of my solution is when a patient is in the chair, I can say something with tact to be of an advocate for people and for myself. For example, I can say, I can see your point. I also can see the other side. I'm just all for human rights. See how I was able to stand up for myself and others without condemning her or making her feel bad? And with that gloss over, oftentimes they'll get the idea and we move on. And then they look you deep in the eye and they realize you're not on their side, and then they shut up. It is your job to speak up for yourself in social situations when you feel, hear, or see an injustice that bothers you. Make sure you're safe and make sure this is something you're comfortable with. And think about it. Don't just react, but pause, think, and respond. This is how you can advocate for your own well-being. You'll stand taller as you walk through the world, and there'll be less reasons to drink, use, shame yourself, and punish yourself. So every day, if I'm feeling that yucky, if it's my partner, if it's someone in the world, if it's politics, if it's finances, I go to my step 4 and I just do those 5 steps. I look at what's the resentment, what causes my resentment, what does that look like, how does it affect me, my role in the situation, what's my solution? And then I always feel better. We're going to move into the big book study like we did before. All right, it's been a minute since we've been reading the big book, about a month. So I will pick up where I think I left off, and I will discuss with you whatever comes up that strikes my fancy. So that's what we do here. We just talk, we chat. You can comment below ideas you have, things you like, things you don't like about the book. And you can also tell me what you want to hear about in these episodes. Some of it might be boring, some of it might be interesting. I'm not sure. Really, my whole point here is to be a support for you, to be a place, a digital place that can live on for a long time for people to visit when they need a friend, to kill time and save a life. So let's do it. Let's see. We are in the first chapter called Bill's Story, and this is page 2, halfway down the page. By the time I had completed the course, I knew that law was not for me. The inviting maelstrom of Wall Street had me in its grip. Business and financial leaders were my heroes. Out of this alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that one day would turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000. Ooh. This book is 90 years old. It went into certain securities, then cheap and rather unpopular. I rightly imagined that they would someday have a great rise. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and managements, but my wife and I decided to go anyway. I had developed a theory that most people lost money in stocks through ignorance of markets. I discovered many more reasons later on. We gave up our positions and off we roared on a motorcycle, the sidecar stuffed with tent, blankets, a change of clothes, and 3 huge volumes of a financial reference service. Remember when we had to carry books? Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed. Perhaps they were right. I had some success at speculation, so we had a little money, but we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing all our small capital. That was the last honest manual labor on my part for many a day. We covered the whole eastern United States in a year. At the end of it, my reports to Wall Street procured me a position there and the use of a large expense account. The exercise of an option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000 for that year. For the next 4 years, fortune threw money and applause my way. I had arrived. My judgment and ideas were followed by many. to the tune of paper millions. The great boom of the late 20s was seething and swelling. Drink was taking an important and exhilarating part in my life. There was loud talk in the jazz places uptown. Everyone spent in thousands and chattered in millions. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. I made a host of fair weather friends. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The, the remonstrances of my friends terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf. There were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. There had been no real infidelity, for loyalty to my wife, helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept me out of those scrapes. In 1929, wow, 1929, y'all. This is Bill's story. In 1929, I contracted Gulf fever. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud while I started out to overtake Walter Hagen. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter. I began to be jittery in the morning. Gulf permitted drinking every day and every night. Oh, I think he's saying that he contracted Gulf fever in a cheeky manner, as if he wanted to play golf all the time and that's where they were drinking. Again, this book was written a long time ago, so I might not always know what he's talking about. He might be talking about golfing, because golf permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to carom around the exclusive course, there it is, which had inspired such awe in me as a lad. I acquired the impeccable coat of tan one sees upon the well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with assumed skepticism. Abruptly in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed. The tickers still clattered. I was staring at an inch of the tape, which bore the inscription XYZ 32. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were my friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from the towers of high finance. Oh my God. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. Isn't that funny? Let's take a pause right there. He didn't jump. He went back to the bar. How funny is that? He didn't take the quick exit. He took the long exit. Now I can respect that, because once you do that, you can't undo it. Please don't harm yourself, especially with something like jumping or, anything more sudden and immediate and forever. Because I got to tell you that physiologically, scientifically, it takes 90 seconds for any emotion to work its way through your body hormonally. So if you give any sort of emotion 90 seconds, it will change. Literally, it's been proven physiologically. The only thing that is forever is change, and feelings are not facts, and everything is temporary. Remember that. But I love how he said he wasn't going to jump. He'll go back to the bar. He'll wallow, and he'll slowly kill himself with the drink. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock, so what? Tomorrow was another day. As I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left and thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No St. Helena for me. But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. This time, we stayed broke. So basically, Bill is telling us, so Bill is one of the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he is telling us that he got successful. He got some serious success and things were going his way. And with that success, he got more opportunity to drink. And we're talking about the early 20th century, the 1900s, early 1900s. And they did not understand alcohol the same way. Great Gatsby times, before and after Prohibition. So much different times, but see how he had it all and then he was broke. And during that time, he was never sober. We went to live with my wife's parents. I found a job, then lost it as a result of a brawl with a taxi driver. Pause. Dude lost a job because of a brawl. Now, one thing that people don't understand is even if you are not drinking today, if you are a regular drinker, meaning if you only drink on the weekends, or if you drink every 3 days, you are always going through some form of withdrawal from that alcohol. Withdrawal, which will make you short-tempered. It will make your blood sugar fluctuate differently. It will make your mood fluctuate differently. And it will be the cause of a lack of patience and a short temper. So this is often the story we hear in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, in the meetings. The destruction starts slow with maybe, man, I got in a fight, whatever, nobody died, I didn't even break his face, whatever, I just got fired because I got in a fight, right? But if the reason behind that insipid anger is not addressed, the drinking will continue and the anger will manifest larger and larger, because as soon as you try to suppress something, it will get bigger. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have real no employment for 5 years or hardly draw a sober breath. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Bathtub gin. 2 bottles a day. It's in quotes, bathtub gin. I wonder what they mean by that. Just drinking in the bathtub, maybe. 2 bottles a day, and often 3. Got to be a routine. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I would pay my bills at the bars and delicatessens. This went on endlessly, and I began to awaken very early in the morning, shaking violently. This happened to me. My drinking got to this point. It really did. Right before COVID happened, I was drinking too much, which is why I said yes to a drink when my boss, who then drugged me, offered it to me, which was then my rock bottom and allowed me to get off the drink. But the shaking violently, going through withdrawals, it is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying, especially if you have to write something. And I did at that time, and it scared the crap out of me. And I didn't know how to stop drinking. So what I would do to stop the shaking is I would drink some more. I was a late learner on the hair of the dog. I didn't know that term, and I didn't really understand how it worked until well into my drinking years. Not until like 38 did I understand that, oh yeah, a drink will often solve that morning yucky feeling of, and there were times younger when I had felt that shake, but it was after one night of drinking, and it was never this prolonged thing that was a routine. And when it became a routine, it became very scary because I knew what I was seeing. Delirium tremens, or the tremors, and when you're in the shakes and the sweats and the almost, and then seizures, that's probably more delirium tremens, but you'll have the tremens. And I beg of you to go watch the show I Love Lucy. And look at William Frawley, the guy who plays Fred Mertz. He was a functioning alcoholic, and he would shake while he was working. He wasn't drinking at work, but he was going through withdrawal at work, and he would drink right after work. And everybody knew that about him, and it was an accepted thing. Alcoholics Anonymous was not proven quite, and still to this day, a lot of people poo-poo it because they don't understand it. But if you look at him in that show, you'll see oftentimes he's shaking, and they'll give him a prop to hold in his hands to help him steady his hands, to give his hands. If it contains a paper, watch that paper. It'll shake a lot. Now I'm fine. And it feels so much better for my nervous system to feel steady, because that is what it feels like. Exactly what you're seeing is exactly what it feels like. Your nervous system feels fried. And that's what you look like you're doing. Fried. You're acting fried. And so Mr. William Frawley, I think he died of a heart attack or a stroke. Older gentleman, I think he was in his 60s or 70s, in Hollywood. But he lived a lonely life, and he lived a sickly life. And you can see how his stomach was all distended. He was not a healthy man. And it brings me sadness. And it reminds me of how sick I felt in the later parts of my drinking, to the point where I wanted that drink to kill me the next swig that I took. I wanted it to take me silently, quietly, quickly, so that I could end the suffering, because I did not believe in myself that I could stop drinking. And it is possible. It is possible with the support of people who care about you. And even if it's strangers, I'm a stranger, I care about you. If you're suffering from alcoholism, I care about you more than I care about other people. Think about that. Because I know how bad it hurts. It's an emotional, spiritual, infection. It is an emotional and spiritual infection. And that poison does not have to be about your coping. That does not have to be how you fix it, because it is not an answer. It is a temporary band-aid that allows the infection to grow. A tumbler full of gin, followed by half a dozen bottles of beer, would be required if I were to eat any breakfast. Oh my goodness. Every sentence this guy says, I have to stop and tell you that yes, I couldn't even eat without my alcohol. That was me too. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation, and there were periods of sobriety which renewed my wife's hope. Gradually, things got worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. So they lost their house. My mother-in-law died. My wife and father-in-law became ill. And then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at the low point of 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and the chance vanished. Great. So basically, the dude procured a lead for his financial expertise. He went on a drinking bender to celebrate it. And then he lost the job because of that bender. There were jobs that I lost that I know probably wouldn't have been lost if I wasn't drinking. For sure, that happened to me. I woke up. This had to be stopped. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises. But my wife happily observed that this time I meant business, and so I did. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. It's just crazy. It's the promise after promise. I swear I'm never going to drink again. I swear I'm never going to drink again. All the beautiful notes, all the beautiful promises. And then he comes home drunk. There had been no fight. Where had been my high resolve? I simply didn't know. It hadn't even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I began to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Some time passed, and confidence began to be replaced by cocksureness. Oh, what a word, cocksureness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes. One day, I walked into a cafe to telephone. So he had to literally go into a cafe to take a telephone call, right? To make a telephone call. Again, a trigger that you would not now have to deal with. You can just call someone from your car. But back then, that's where they sell everything, right? At the drugstore, and that's where they have the telephone. So that's where the trigger is. In no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, but I might as well get good and drunk then. And I did. So he rationalizes, how the hell did I get this drunk again? I said I wasn't going to drink, but now that I'm drinking, I might as well get even drunker because I'm going to drink, and this is probably going to be my last drink, right? The remorse, the horror, the hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. That's true. I would always feel that impending doom the next morning, in the end. I hardly dared cross the street, lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck, for it was scarcely daylight. An all night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My writhing nerves were stilled at last. My God. The poor guy had to go get his nerves calmed by whatever place was open. A morning paper told me that the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I kill myself? No, not now. Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So, 2 bottles and oblivion. The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms, for mine endured this agony 2 more years. Oh my God. I know it. I did this a long time too. I was a daily drinker for 12 years I drank every single day. And so I did get to this point where it was all day, every day, promising myself that eventually it's going to be no day. But right now, that's not the day. Yeah. Sometimes I stole from my wife's slender purse when the morning terror and madness were on me. Amazing, his wife was still with him, right? Again, I swayed dizzily before an open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison, cursing myself for a weakling. There were flights from city to country and back as my wife and I sought escape. Then came the night when the physical and mental torture was so hellish I feared I would burst through my window, sash and all. Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to a lower floor lest I suddenly leap. A doctor came in with a heavy sedative. Next day found me drinking both gin and sedative. I had done that. There was a time when the doctors gave me sedatives to get off the alcohol, and then like there were extras, and so I just took the sedatives with the alcohol. Thankfully, I was never quite a pill person. The alcohol was just easier, but if I did have them, I took them at that time. Yeah. The combination soon landed me on the rocks. People feared for my sanity. So did I. I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight. Yes, I was underweight as well. I was about 105, and 125 is my normal weight. My brother in law is a physician, and though his kindness and that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital for the mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics. Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared. Belladonna is a naturally derived herb or plant. So I guess they used belladonna in some sort of herb or holistic manner. Hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much. Best of all, I met a kind doctor who explained that though certainly selfish and foolish, I had been seriously ill bodily and mentally. It relieved me somewhat to learn that in alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. Now that's true, but I would like to say that you don't have to call yourself an alcoholic. You can call yourself somebody who loves alcohol a lot, or a person that's currently having an alcohol use disorder. Right? Alcoholic. A lot of people don't like the word. You know what? We can reframe that. Our semantics are here for us to understand, label ourselves, label everything, communicate, so that we can understand things, learn from them, and grow. And if you don't like the word alcoholic, you know, How about, some of us are just more prone to the alcohol because just because. Do we need to know why right now? No. My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope. For 3 or 4 months of goose, no, for 3 or 4 months the goose hung high. Pardon my trip ups on this text. Gosh darn it, I can't even predict each next word. They're so written silly. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer, self knowledge. But it was not. For the frightful day came when I drank once more. The curve of my declining moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. After a time, I returned to the hospital. This was the finish. The curtain, it seemed to me. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during delirium tremens, there's that word, or I would develop a wet brain, perhaps within a year. Pause here. Wet brain is basically a term, an antiquated term they use to call someone who is basically just kind of stupid by brain damage, often caused by alcohol usage. She would soon have to give me over to the undertaker or the asylum. They did not need to tell me. I knew and almost welcomed the idea. It was a devastating blow to my pride. I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining the endless procession of sots who had gone on before. I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all. What would I not give to make amends? But that was over now. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. Pause there. I agree. Alcohol was my fucking master, and I fucking hated it, and I was a fucking slave to it. I was a slave to it. It infiltrated every decision I made. I knew which Target stores had liquor and which did not. It helped me decide which movies to go, which movie theaters to patronize because some of them sold alcohol and some of them did not. It helped me decide whether or not I was going to drive somewhere or I would have a stranger on an app be paid to drive me somewhere. All these extra risks, all these extra expenses, all these extra hoops that I had to jump through to attain the drink and then maintain the drink and then ascertain the drink and then recover from the drink and then try to refrain from the drink. It was so exhausting. So exhausting that now that I don't, I have so much free time and so much free energy and so much extra life inside of me to share, which is what gives me the motivation to make this podcast slash videocast slash audiocast slash video, whatever you want to call it. You have to fill your time when you do stop the drinking, for sure. You have to fill your time with things that will work for you, that fill your heart, that make you feel happy. It might be a lot of arts and crafts. It might be no arts and crafts, a lot of physical exercise or none. Some people go into extreme sports. I don't recommend it, but you know what? If hang gliding is your thing, you go at it because we're talking about harm reduction here. Now, I'm the first one to tell you that whatever else you can use that's safe and healthy enough, that's less harmful than alcohol, then find a way to use it. You have my permission, if you know what I mean. And if you don't, that's okay. What I'm saying is there's harm reduction and then there's a death sentence. And alcohol is a death sentence. I know this because you can die from alcohol. And there's a lot of things you can use that you won't die from. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital a broken man. Fear sobered me for a bit. Then came the insidious insanity of that first drink. And on Armistice Day, 1934, I was off again. Everyone became resigned to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere or would stumble along to a miserable end. And I went through that too. When I was drugged and assaulted by my employer in January of 2020, because wine was my higher power, I said yes to a glass of wine. I ignored red flags, and he gave me drugs in that drink that I was unaware of. That yes to that alcohol gave him a vehicle to drug me. And it wasn't for another year after. So that was right after that. I tried to stop drinking and I had a seizure. And it was still another year of drinking. That seizure wasn't what did it. It was another year of drinking, me having to call 911 to get the firefighters to take me to the hospital because I thought I was going to die. And my son saying those magic words that he said to me. He said, "Mommy, don't drink alcohol, drink coconut water. It's better for you. It's healthier." So a year after that seizure, it took a year still of drinking after a seizure, and I felt this overwhelming loneliness, despair. I felt like, please take me. Just don't traumatize my son. Please take me. And I did that too. I thought, after a seizure, it's a really messed up story because there's Hollywood people involved, and I can't say names because if I say names, then people could put things together, and I don't want to be sued for libel because I don't have any money. And the people I'm talking about, they got lots of money. I want this channel to stay strong. And maybe I won't be so afraid one day of being sued for libel, but for today, I'll keep certain details to myself. But there were milestones along my sobriety journey that you'd think were going to be the last time I drank. It looked like I really had a handle on it, but I couldn't stop the drinking. I could stop the drinking. I couldn't stay off the drink until I implemented the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is asking for help using community and unity and honesty, truth, and the steps for recovery. And that's why I cry happy tears of joy looking back. A lot of stuff went down, and hopefully I can find even more resolve with it someday. But I don't want to do more harm, And when we make our amends, when we go back and make our amends, sometimes we don't because we don't want to cause more harm. And I was a nanny for this person. So there are children involved, and this person was a referral. So there's a web of families involved. They don't even know they're involved because I and the DA wouldn't prosecute. And I have to live with that. And I see them on social, and there's all these things I had to change about my life and have to deal with the daily triggers that maybe you don't have to, or maybe you do. My pain is not any more devastating than yours. Everyone has their own level of trauma, pain, despair, suffering, and it is 100% valid. And I'm proud of you for sticking with it this long with me and killing some time to save our lives and reading the wisdom of this book that's nearly 100 years old, trying to help another person pass some time with a little bit of wisdom, love, support. I'm rooting for you. How dark it is before the dawn. In reality, that was the beginning of my last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I love that. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With a certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through that night and the next day. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a full bottle of gin near the head of our bed. I would need it before daylight. Pause. I would do the same thing. I would hide alcohol all around my house in different areas that I know my partner wouldn't look. I also would bring more alcohol on vacation with us. If we were staying somewhere where I didn't have hiding places or something, I did this several times where I would make sure I bring room temperature alcohol. In case I brought the alcohol, placed it somewhere in the room, my partner happened to find it, I didn't want my partner to find it cold because they would know I had brought it. I figured if they found it room temp, then I could just say, someone must have forgot it. It's not mine. Again, the mental gymnastics that alcoholics or alcohol use disorder victims or survivors, or us with a disease, or us with a dis-ease. That's what disease is. Dis-ease. That's what it is. The jumping through hoops. It was exhausting. Can you believe all that thinking? Jesus Christ. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked if he might come over. He was sober. It was years since I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it that he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. I wondered how he had escaped. Escaped. Of course, he would have dinner, and then I could drink openly with him. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought only of recapturing the spirit of other days. There was that time we had chartered an airplane to complete a jag. His coming was an oasis in the dreary desert of futility, the very thing, an oasis. Drinkers are like that. The door opened and he stood there, fresh skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? I pushed a drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had got into the fellow. He wasn't himself. Come, what's this all about? I queried. He looked straight at me. Simply but smilingly, he said, I've got religion. I was aghast. So that was it. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked about religion. He had that starry-eyed look. Yes, that old boy was on fire all right, but bless his heart, let him rant. Besides, my gin would last longer than his preaching. But he did no ranting. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how two men had appeared in court persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and practical program of action. Let's highlight that on the bottom of page 9, because this is where Bill is hearing from his friend just the beginnings of the formings, the beginnings of Alcoholics Anonymous, this program that has helped millions of people worldwide. And they first called it a religious thing, and that's fine. If that doesn't work for you, doesn't work for me, I'm leaving that part out. It's a program. It's a program, a practical program. Bottom of page 9 in Bill's story. They had told of a simple religious idea, and that's okay. I go back in my book. And I cross out religious because I don't like it. So I take what works, I leave the rest behind, or I scratch it out. They had told of a simple idea and a practical program of action. That was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked. He had come to pass his experience along to me if I cared to have it. I was shocked, but interested. Certainly I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless. He talked for hours. Childhood memories rose before me. I could almost hear the sound of the preacher's voice as I sat on still Sundays way over there on the hillside. There was that proffered temperance pledge I never signed, my grandfather's good-natured contempt of some church folk and their doings, his insistence that the spheres really had their music, but his denial of the preacher's right to tell him how he must listen. His fearlessness as he spoke of these things just before he died, these recollections welled up from the past. They made me swallow hard. That wartime day in old Winchester Cathedral came back again. I had always believed in a power greater than myself. I had always prudent. I often pondered these ideas. Hold there. He's talking about how he went to the churches and a lot of his old religious stuff was coming back. The stuff that you and I often will talk about here, the religious triggers that work for some and turn some of us away. So even Bill in the beginning had to go to these churches for the meetings or just go to church and part of whatever their healing. And he was triggered. Childhood stuff. I had always believed in a power greater than myself. I had often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. Pause. That's kind of vague and not correct. I'm an atheist. I believe that there is a higher power, but I'm an atheist. So that those two things can exist at one time. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the astronomers, even the evolutionists, suggested vast laws and forces at work. Despite contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. How could there be so much precise and immutable law and no intelligence? I simply had to believe in a spirit of the universe who knew neither time nor limitation, but that was as far as I had gone. And I think that's a great place to stop right here, where he obviously had hang-ups about religion and theology. He says he's not an atheist, but he had hang-ups. He had preconceived notions. He had things that had come to pass when he was younger, and it turned him off. Because a lot of the AA meetings that we attend happen in churches, you may be triggered by these settings. I choose to take an ownership over my own emotions and thoughts. So I try to find the beauty in the church, in the organization. I have been injured. A lot of people have been injured by people who claim to be men of God or people serving a higher power or a religion or a theology. That is not what we're focusing on here. What we are focusing on are the little bits of understanding of our humanity and existence that get us to keep ourselves off of the drink. We don't need to escape to a bottle. We can escape to a grounding exercise, to something that feels helpful, feels good, feels like it's helping good. Not necessarily G-O-D, maybe G-O-O-D. Maybe there was a typo. Maybe there's good. Maybe we're serving good. That is our higher power. So when I'm feeling stressed in my daily, I have made different cards, things I will leave around my home for me to glance at so I can remember, because I want to internalize these difficult things that I am teaching myself, that I'm learning through the program and through therapy. Lots of modalities of healing in my life right now in order to stay this sane and well balanced. And some of that is making beautiful little note cards, leaving them around my space to remind myself of new ideas of handling stressors when they come up. Here's one of them. I got some beautiful cardstock paper. You can see that has a little embossment on there. And I wrote down the 5 senses. Why? Because that's a grounding exercise. Because me and my son and my partner, we are learning in therapy that a great way to handle stress or feeling overwhelmed or anger or upset or frustration is grounding. So my taste, what am I tasting right now? I think of my 5 senses. What am I tasting? Dry mouth, actually. What am I smelling? I have a pumpkin spice candle going. That's what I'm smelling. What am I feeling? I'm feeling a comfortable chair. And by the time I get to my 3rd sense, often I'm forgetting which senses I need to get to. Because I have chosen to use a healing modality like a grounding thought, like 5 senses, something I've looked at on my card around my home, I'm remembering 5 senses. 5 senses is a grounding exercise. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can just reference my senses and I can get back to home base in my body, back to a regulated nervous system, regulated body, not overwhelmed, a whelmed body, not overwhelmed, but whelmed, regulated. And if I do my grounding exercises, I put my feet on the ground and I list all the things I can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. Well, then I can get back to a regulated state. And I encourage you to do something like that for yourself, okay? I hope this podcast or this video podcast has been helpful for you today. If you have any questions about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous or the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, please email me at steddydub@gmail.com. That's steadydub@gmail.com. I had one of my first followers email me and it just overjoyed me. Becky, I'm giving you a shout out, girl. Thanks so much for doing that. That was really sweet. I'm going to write you back soon. And I appreciate anyone reaching out for a friend, a tender ear to listen or write to. Just sharing our woes really leaning on another person really helps my recovery, and I encourage you to do it. And I'm here for you to do that. My name is Stephanie, and I'm an alcoholic, and I am not going to drink today. So drop in the chat things that you want to know about AA. Drop in the chat your name, where you're from, when you're listening to this. Let me know how you're feeling and what you're going through. And I appreciate you. Good job. We killed some time and we saved our lives. No drinking. Keep smiling. Be kind. I love you. Namaste.